Hi guys, let's take a look at a paragraph. First of all, if we are writing this, I would hope that you would recognize that this formatting is not correct. So right now, you tell me at least 3 formatting errors that you are seeing in this paragraph, and how would you fix them? Okay, hopefully you identified that you should indent this paragraph. That's number one. Second of all, the font here is too large. Remember, your font size can be 10, 11, or 12. Nothing else. And finally, oh my God, double space. So this has some formatting issues, but hopefully your paragraph doesn't. So let's take a look. Lauren Olamina has great insight into her world. What is that? Okay, hopefully you just said that is a topic sentence, because it is. Okay, she is smart enough to prepare for the future. What is that? Okay, that is an opinion. Now, someone asked me a question in private, and it was a great question, and I don't think I gave it the best answer I could have. The question is, how can you tell if something is a true claim? And I called it an opinion, but the better word for it is claim. How can I tell if something is a true claim? Because, well, doesn't that look a lot like a fact? That she's smart enough to prepare for the future. And I said, well, but this is really debatable. That there are people that think she's smart, and there are people in the book that just think she's absolutely overbearing. So it is debatable. And that is a valid answer, but I think there's a better answer. The way the paragraph is set up, a claim, you are saying that the topic sentence is true because of the claim. So what you're really saying is that she has great insight into the world. Why? Why does she have great insight into the world? She has great insight into the world because she is smart enough to prepare for the future. The fact that you've got this cause and effect relationship, that you are implying that this is true because this is true, that's what really makes it a claim, because you are trying to suggest that this second statement, that this idea that she's smart enough to prepare for the future causes this to be true. And that's definitely an opinion. So this is a claim. So what do I have next? When the other people in her community close their eyes to the danger, she recognizes that desperate people outside their gates pose a very real danger. What is that? Yep, that's evidence. Now, it is the quote correctly embedded. To know that, I have to ask myself, is the citation correct? Yes or no? Okay. Is the quote small enough that it doesn't overwhelm the sentence? Yes or no? Okay. And finally, if I read it out loud, do these words all flow together without there being an awkward break between the student words and the quote? Do they flow together? Yes or no? Yeah, since we said all 3 of those were good, that is a good piece of evidence there. Now, what do I have here? She begins to collect. By the way, this happens a lot. So I know that what you're going for is information, but a lot of you guys, what you're doing is you're letting the ending slip, you're letting little stuff slip through, and you got to make sure that you're really focusing. She begins to collect information such as wild plants and local maps that could help someone survive outside the compound. What is that? Yep, that's more evidence. Is it good evidence? You're right, it definitely is. Okay, her focus on practical items such as plants and maps makes it clear that she knows what is of real value. What kind of commentary is this? This is commentary because we are no longer talking about the evidence in the book. We are now going back to the student claim that she's smart, and why is it that this evidence proves that she is smart. So your commentary is going to kind of go back to that why. So commentary always has a kind of reasoning. So my question is, what kind of reasoning is this? Your hint, we're talking about specific words and why those significant words are. Did you pick significance commentary? That is why those words are significant. So that's significance commentary. So what is this sentence? She doesn't focus on money or even her own subtle attraction to the boy next door the way a less mature teen might. Is that commentary? Well, does it provide specific details from the book? No. Does that help explain why the student thinks that she is smart? Yes. And if you're telling me why your claim is true, that's commentary. What kind of commentary does this present? Yep. That time it's contrast. It's contrasting her against what an average teenager is like. She is focused on the future. What is it? It's still commentary. Now, the question is, do I keep this commentary? And if so, what kind of commentary is it? Well, it's actually contrasting against that less mature teen. The less mature teen is focused on the boy next door. She's more mature, so she's focused on the future. And here is the deal. Good commentary is going to pull in the words from the claim and the topic sentence. So let's take a look. She knows what's of real value. That's her being smart. Practical is her being smart. She doesn't focus on money or her own subtle attraction the way less mature. She's focused on the future. The fact that she knows these things shows her insight. So, do the words in the commentary tie you back to what's going on in the topic, sentence, and claim? Yes, they do. So that's why that is good commentary. It has a reasoning type, and it really focuses you on what is going on in the claim and the topic sentence. So, however, her ability to understand people is an even greater example of her insight. So, what is my second claim? Her second claim is her ability to understand people is insightful. So the first claim, she's smart enough to prepare for the future. That's what gives her insight into the world. Second claim is she has an ability to understand people, and that makes her insightful about her world. So do both of these claims support the idea that she has great insight into her world? Yes. Make sure that both your claims really support the topic sentence. So that's my claim. Then this is what? Yep, that's my transition. So after her community is burned, she recognizes Travis and Gloria as being safe allies even when others pose a real danger to their small group. And when she sees Emery flinch away from the others, she realizes she is another sharer who's forced to feel others' pain. What is, let me change colors. What is this? Okay. Is it correctly cited? Yes, it is. What do I know about the original source simply by the fact that I have a page number there? Yep, I hope you told me that you know that that's a print book because you only have page numbers in printed books. Now, if I were reading this on my Kindle, if I were reading this on something electronic like on the internet, I would not have page numbers. What would my citation look like if what I were reading this on were the internet? Okay, I hope you told me that if you're reading online, the only thing you're going to have is the author's name. But in this case, I have a book, so I have a page number. So she might be a young person, but she has the insight a reader would expect from someone much older and more worldly. A psychologist would not be better equipped to identify the individuals who are most likely to prove helpful to the small group as they try and survive. What is that? Okay, does it have specific details from the book? No, then it is not what? Yeah, it's not evidence. Evidence always has specific details from the book. Even if it's a summary, it has some specific details. But this is telling me why her ability to understand people is insightful. It's telling me she has as much insight as a psychologist. Well, if you're telling me why, then that means you are in commentary. Yes? Now, if this is commentary, you tell me what type of reasoning you have. Yep, comparison, because you're comparing it to a psychologist. Now, if it's good commentary, I am going to have words in here that are going to tie me back to either my claim or all the way back to my topic sentence. So let's see if I have that. Insight. Whoop. Insight. Yep. And insight here. Another reader would expect from someone much older and more worldly. A psychologist would not be better equipped to identify the individuals who are most likely to prove helpful to the small group as they try and survive. So, do I have words in this commentary that connect that entire argument together? The answer is yes. And so that is good commentary. So that leaves us with just one sentence left. What is that very last sentence? Clearly, Lauren has an incredible talent that allows her to see the world, one that very few in this book share. What is that? Yep, that is closure. So, what should I see in good closure? I should see a closing transition. Ding, ding, ding. Clearly. What else should I see in closure? I should see a return to that topic sentence and the ideas in the topic sentence. Actually, let me change color. I'll change that to blue. So, insight in the world. Talent that allows her to see the world. So, do I go back to the original topic from the topic sentence? Yes. Ding, ding, ding. Last thing I should see is an intensifier. Something that is the mic drop moment that makes me say, yes, absolutely. That she is incredible and that very few have that same insight. Those take her talent and make it more intense. So that is a good closure. Now, we need to talk about how you are going from a paragraph, which hopefully you wrote a paragraph that looks just like this, into a essay. Well, first of all, an essay is always going to have 2 or 3 or 4 body paragraphs in it. So you need another body paragraph. Where are you going to get another body paragraph? You're going to raid your group members. all group members are going to go to the upper right-hand corner of their Google Docs, and they are going to share their paragraph with the rest of their group. Now, that means that you have a chance to get feedback from your group on whether or not your paragraph is really strong. And if you can help each other, then help each other. But your task is you are going to raid and try and find another paragraph. And then you have permission, don't normally do this, but this time you have permission to copy and paste the second paragraph. Now, if we had all done the parable of the sower, I might choose a second paragraph on Lauren. Maybe what I want to do is I want to have an entire essay that focuses on Lauren, but I want to talk about the different traits she has. That she's insightful, but then I might have a second body paragraph on a second trait. Or I might look for someone who has a different character altogether. Then I could have an essay about the parable of the sower, one body paragraph on her father, another body paragraph on Lauren. So I can set my essay up a lot of different ways, but my goal is to find a body paragraph that kind of works well with mine. So let's take a look at what that looks like. I'll be right back. Okay, so I have picked my second paragraph. I picked Keith Olimana as a cruel individual. And then, of course, you can read through that and look at that as you would like. Now, my question is, what do these two things have in common? Well, one of the things they might have in common is they are both from the book Parable of the Sowers. So one of my options is I can actually write a background introduction. In a background introduction, I give background about about the subject. In this case, it would be the novel. So you can give background on what it is that you're writing about. So these two things, what they have in common is they're from the same novel. So let me give information about the background of the novel. Okay, I can simply go to Google. Please indent your paragraphs. But I can go to Google and I can look up the novel, I can look up the author, I can look up the background. So, Octavia Butler, ooh, hello, I can spell that. Butler began writing the award-winning novel The Parable of the Sower Now, real quick, you have to make sure that if it is the title of a novel, that you are italicizing that stuff. So, Octavia Butler began writing the award-winning novel, The Parable of the Sower, in the 1970s. Oh, the 1070s. Wow, that would be impressive. The 1970s. But she didn't publish, oops, that's a fanboy, until 1993. Well, this book was written decades ago. The author included a warming planet pummeled by increasingly violent storms. Oh my gosh. Punneled. Or pummeled. Pummeled as in beaten. A country suffering economic collapse, and a California plagued by fire and drought. Is anyone else kind of, I don't know, a little terrified that she managed to be writing about that in the 1970s? Yeah, a little bit. Because the 1970s and 1980s, these things really weren't on our radar yet. And yet she managed to nail all of them. Now, that is what I call my hook. A hook is, what am I going to do to try and get the reader interested? I need to pull something really interesting. And with background, if you're doing a background hook, you want to pull out something that makes the reader go, dang, heck, I didn't know that. So hopefully, I kind of, is for somebody to have seen this coming from the 1970s, hopefully that makes you go, dang, holy crap, that lady was smart. So that's my hook. Now, the last part of my introduction should always be a thesis. And a thesis should lead me into what my body paragraphs are going to be about. It is my roadmap. So my thesis is a roadmap. Now, in this case, what are my two body paragraphs? I have the Keith Olamina body paragraph first, and then the Lauren Olamina paragraph. What order should those be in? Well, they should be in the order of whichever paragraph you think is stronger at the end. Remember, build up to a point. So, if Keith is my first body paragraph, Lauren is my second body paragraph, what are both of these body paragraphs about? These are both about characters in the parable of the sower. So, what do I need to have in my thesis? Well, exactly that. Don't make your thesis overly complicated. If a roadmap is too complicated, it's hard to follow. So, I want my thesis to be very clear. So, in the parable of the sower, what do I have to do with titles? Yeah, thank you for saying italicize. In the parable of the sower, Keith and Lauren are both strong characters. Period, full stop. That's all I need to have. And then I can talk about how each has a different kind of strong character. Keith is strong because he's so cruel. Lauren is strong because she's so smart. But that's not the only way I can do it. I can also say, in the parable of the sower, Keith is cruel. But Lauren is insightful. Is that equally good? Well, sure, because again, you're telling me the first body paragraph is going to be about Keith and the second one is going to be about Lauren. Look, Keith, Lauren, they're still in order. The one thing that's going to get you in trouble is if they get out of order. If you tell me you're going to do 1 and 2, then those body paragraphs need to be in the same order. So you can't get these backwards. Deal? Okay, so now I have my hook. That's right up front. I have my, sorry, I'm having trouble getting back into that to type. I have my hook. I have my thesis. So, am I done with my introduction? Well, the fact is, I'm not. I need something that will connect these two things together. And the thing that connects, I wouldn't write the word hook, the thing that connects my hook to my thesis is called a bridge. Why? Well, because it's going to bridge the top to the bottom, tie them together, and a bridge is a type of transition. Now, Kids always struggle with bridge transitions, and it's the silliest thing in the world. And by the way, you don't only find these in introductions, you find them all over the place. I've never seen an SAT test that did not ask you at least one question about a bridge transition. However, you typically do find them in every intro. In a bridge transition, you are going to take a couple of words from the top. Okay, so main idea words from the top. You've got award-winning, you've got novel, you've got the 1970s, you've got publish, decades, warming planet. These are some of the words from the top. What are the words from the bottom? Keith, cruel, Lauren, insightful. So how do I build a bridge transition? I take any words from the top, I join them from any words from the bottom, and I put them into one sentence. Okay? In this novel from decades ago, 2 characters stand out from the rest. Do I have words from the top? Yes. Do I have words from the bottom? Well, 2 characters is a reference to these 2. So the answer would be yes. So is that the only bridge? Nope. Let's try that again. Okay. Butler includes 2 characters in this exceptionally powerful novel, or includes 2 strong characters in this exceptionally powerful novel. Butler and novel come from the top. 2 characters is a reference to these 2 people from the bottom. That's also a bridge. So anything that includes a reference to the top and a reference to the bottom is going to be a bridge. So let's take a look at one. Okay, so what do you think about this as a bridge? Butler's novel, I got to turn my pen on. Sorry about that. Butler's novel included 2 very different siblings. Well, siblings is a reference to Keith and Lauren. Butler is a reference to that opening hook. Novel is a reference to the opening hook. So, can I sort of leapfrog from the opening, middle, ride that middle along, and then use this to bridge into the bottom? Yes. Through this bridge, the top is tied together with the bottom, and that's all a bridge has to do. So, sometimes people make bridge very complicated, but the simple fact of the matter is the only trick to writing a good bridge is that you have to make sure that you have your hook written and that you then have your thesis written before you stop trying to pull keywords from top and bottom to connect them together. So let's try another intro, because background is not the only kind of introduction we write. Another kind of introduction we can do is quotes. So if I want to write a quote intro, let me get in here and try and delete this. There you go. If I'm going to give a quote intro, I need to know what it is that I am going to look up. So what is it that Keith and Lauren have in common? Well, I might look up siblings. So I would just go to Google and I would say quotes, siblings. And I may look and realize, dude, all of these quotes are about real life siblings, and these are fictional siblings, and that doesn't match. So then maybe I say, okay, what do they have in common? They're both characters. Okay, let me go and let me look up quotes, characters. Well, I have to look through until I find a quote that I look at and I say, yeah, okay, that is something that definitely applies to both of these two. That's what I'm trying to talk about. And when I find that quote, I'm going to put the person who says the quote up front. Joss Whedon. Ideally, you want to tell me who this person is that they're quoting. Every once in a while, a kid will quote somebody, and I'm like, oh, you're quoting Joseph Mengele. Sweetie, you do realize that he is a mass murderer and Nazi, and maybe you shouldn't be quoting him as being wise and insightful, but hey, you do you? No. Look up who it is. Okay. A famous producer. In fact, he did probably some of your favorite superhero movies. Once said, now this is a formal quote, meaning this is not embedded. This introduces a quote, and I'm now going to have a full sentence that follows. So because this is a formal quote, I need a comma and a quote mark. You take people, you put them on a journey, you give them peril, you find out who they really are. The next thing that you're going to want to do on a quote is you want to tell me what you think that means. Quotes are open to interpretation, so I want to see your interpretation of that if you're doing a quote intro. His words suggest that a person's true nature is revealed only when they face challenges. Okay? So that is going to be my hook. Again, the hook, it should show insight, it should catch attention, it should make someone go, ooh, wow, huh. Then, the very bottom, I'm leaving some room there because remember, I'm going to come back and do the bridge, but down at the bottom, I should have my bridge, or my thesis. Again, my thesis should tell me what are the body paragraphs going to be and what order are they going to come in. Keith Olamina is sadistic. Well, Lauren is intelligent. That tells me my first body paragraph is going to be on Keith. My second one's going to be on Lauren. Those two things are in order. I do know what's coming in the essay. So I've now shown you 3 different theses, all for the same essay. And so I'm hoping that you're starting to see the pattern in that as long as the roadmap is okay, then I'm okay. So let me now say, what words do I have that are main idea words in the top? Well, I'm looking at Wheaton, producer, journey, peril, who they really are. Those are my main ideas in the top. In the bottom, I'm seeing Keith, Lauren, Olamina. So these are 2 characters, sadistic, intelligent. A bridge is going to be anything that connects these things together. So, on my bridge, 2 people who go on a journey during the parable of the sower end up with very different results. That gets me people from the top. 2 is a reference to Keith and Lauren from the bottom. I can pull in peril from the top. Different is a reference to the bottom, that one is sadistic and one is intelligent. That works. But the trick is anything that pulls ideas from the top and the bottom and ties them together in the same sentence will work. Stop trying to make bridge into something fancier than it really is. It's a transition, period. Okay. So, 2 characters faced great peril in the parable of the sower. And they had exceptionally different outcomes. Keith Olamina is sadistic. Well, Lauren Olamina is intelligent. And so now you can see two characters takes me down to that I'm going to be talking about Keith and Lauren. Peril takes me up into the quote. Different outcomes takes me down into sadistic and intelligent. Sorry, I'm trying to backspace and talk at the same time. So you have ties to both the top and the bottom. I'm going to try one more, and then we're going to talk about conclusions, which should be the fastest thing in the whole universe. Okay, you can see here the paragraphs have changed. So we still have Lauren Olamina has great insight into the world, but this time we've rated a different paragraph to pair up with. Lauren Olamina does not understand the people who are closest to her. She ruins her closest friendships by misunderstanding her friend. When Lauren shares her fears that the community won't survive an assault from outsiders that are at their gates, she frightens Joanne, who runs to her parents and tells them that Lauren has frightened her with stories of irrational fears. Question: does this evidence right here, does it support the idea that she is ruining closest friendships by misunderstanding? Well, it's maybe a little tough on the she's ruined the friendship, but it certainly does show that she's misunderstood her friend. She terrifies her friend. So make sure that your evidence really, really, really supports the claim that you're going for. Commentary. If Lauren understood her friend, she would have noticed that she was scaring her, and she would have found another way to introduce the idea that the community was in danger. What type of commentary is that? Hint. Yep, that's contrast commentary, because you're contrasting what it would be like if she were different. However, Lauren recognized that emotion in her closest friend. No, she didn't. However, Lauren didn't recognize that emotion in her closest friend. Believe it or not, one of the biggest things I see, which is a little bit weird, is sometimes you guys leave the word not out. Or not, however, Lauren didn't. Make sure that you are proofreading yourself, because leaving that not out, believe it, is pretty darn common. Okay. She showed that same trait even earlier in the book with her stepmother. Same trait even earlier in the book. This is your transition right here. You're telling me that you're going to pull something that is earlier in the book. Does that create a sense of, oh my gosh, I want to see what that is? Well, no, not as much as a stronger transition like an even greater example. But it is a transition. So the first claim is that she doesn't understand people who are close because she doesn't get her friends. Second claim is she doesn't understand people who are close because she doesn't get her stepmother. Does that still support that she doesn't understand people who are closest to her? Well, yeah, I would assume that she's pretty close to her stepmother. Corazon Olamina is a complete mystery to her stepdaughter. So we kind of have a second claim here. I'm not going to get too upset with you, but yeah, that seems you've got two claims. Okay, I'll go with two claims. Awkward, but not, I mean, it's not like horrible. When Lauren describes Keith as their mother's favorite child, she says this makes no sense since he is the worst of all the brothers. After Keith is murdered horribly, she complains that Corazon's grief is wild and unreasonable because she doesn't see Keith as someone to mourn the passing of. Might I suggest that If a parent loses a child, you don't suggest, hey, your child is not worth anything, and why are you mourning the passing of him? He was a jerk. That's not going to go over well. So, does this prove that she is not understanding people closest to her? Kind of, yes. This one's even stronger. Well, Lauren is smart in many ways. Her inability to understand the points of view of her family and friends shows that she's childlike in some ways. Like a child, she sees the world only through her own beliefs, and she acts surprised when the other people have different beliefs. That is commentary, so you tell me right now, what kind of commentary is this? Yep, comparison. Like a child. Okay, so comparing her to a child. Now, because we've got two Laurens here, we definitely need something that we should have had with the last pairing of paragraphs, but it's even more noticeable here. Does it feel awkward to you that you go, Lauren Olamina has great insight. Lauren Olamina does not understand people who are closest to her. Does that feel a little awkward to anyone else? Yeah, because every body paragraph after your first should have a transition. And it should be, in fact, a bridge transition. This, she does not understand those who are closest to her, is going to take you down into this body paragraph. So you have the part that ties you down. What part of the transition are you missing? The part of a bridge transition that's going to link you up. So I need to have some words that are going to link me up to this body paragraph in front. So maybe I'm going to say something like, despite her great intelligence in some areas, she does not understand the people who are closest to her. Despite her great intelligence in some areas, Lauren Olamina does not understand the people who are closest to her. And I wouldn't repeat her full name because you just said her full name, so Lauren works. This, now you have this great intelligence, ties you up to that previous paragraph. And this does not understand the people who are closest to her. That takes you down into the paragraph that you're going into. I will say this, I would probably reverse the order of these two body paragraphs, because this is the stronger one and this is the weaker one. And so I would want to make sure that I went from good to better to best. And because you always want to feel like you're building up to a point, I think ending with this paragraph, which is a little bit weaker, is a little on the not so good side. So before I added that transition in here, I would probably flip-flop these two, and then I would transition on this paragraph instead. However, main thing we need to do here is we need to look at how are we going to create an introduction. Now, the introduction is a little bit different here. If I'm going to do background, look what I would now be doing background on. I'm not writing about the whole novel. I don't have multiple characters. I would give a background on Lauren. So, which of these looks like the best background on Lauren? You got it. That shows me what her character is like. And so I now have background on Lauren. Well, thesis. The thesis is pretty easy. I know I'm going to be writing about Lauren, and I know I'm going to be including two traits. The way the two paragraphs are set up now, what's my first trait? Insight. What is my second trait? Does not understand those closest. Those are my traits. If I change the order of my body paragraphs, I must change the order of my thesis. The thesis must be a roadmap. It has to tell me ideas in order. So Lauren has insight. Now, am I talking similarity or difference? Difference? Then I want to go with a difference word. However, she does not understand, and I don't want to go closest. I want to use a slightly different wording just so I'm not repeating myself. Does not understand the people in her life. Okay, that thesis now should take me from, okay, incredible insight is my first body paragraph. Does not understand the people in her life is my second body paragraph. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, then which of these is going to be my best bridge? Yeah, believe it or not, that little tiny transition is all the bridge I need. And the reason why is because so much of this is already connected. I mean, look at this. You have Lauren Olamina in the hook, but then she's already there in the thesis. So you don't need much of a bridge here. In fact, my guess is on this one, you could probably get away without a bridge simply because the top and the bottom are already tied together. But I do like keeping the bridge here simply because this bridge then starts to introduce that ideas of, and I would say strengths and weaknesses. Because that would start to introduce these specific traits that you're going to come into. So, lots of ways that you can actually write an introduction. Could you do a quote? Yes. In fact, in this case, if I was going to do a quote, I might go and look up a quote from Lauren Olamina herself. Now, what do I need to have in my conclusion? Because that is an area that, again, students make way more complicated than it should be. In a conclusion, you're going to have 3 parts. Part 1, you're going to restate the thesis. Part 2 is you're going to refer back to hook. And part 3 is you're going to take it out into the real life. Why study this? Why care about this? Why anything? So if you notice, it's kind of going backwards. So the thesis is the last thing in your intro, but it's going to be the first thing in your conclusion. The hook is the first thing, but then it goes out here. And then this is a little bit new. So what are you going to do to write a conclusion? Well, I start by restating my thesis, and I want to use different words. So I want to make sure that I'm not repeating myself. So since I put Lauren first in the thesis, maybe I put Lauren at the end. Despite great insight, Lauren's inability to connect with people, with friends and family, hurts her. So now I want to go back to restating or referring back to the hook. In the hook, I talked about how she's the oldest daughter of a minister and college professor, that she's disabled. So I want to go back to those major ideas that I said defined her. Unlike her minister father, she doesn't understand others. And her disability makes her feel separate from the rest of the world. Okay, so that's my reference back to the hook. Now, a lot of times the reference back to the hook will have a couple sentences, and that's okay to do that. If you want to have just one sentence, I'm okay with that too. That's kind of up to you. So, she's a sympathetic character. See how I'm still pulling from the hook? But certainly not a perfect one. Now, real life. Why are we studying this? Why is this important to talk about? Why does it matter? She is a realistic character. And studying her can help readers understand themselves. Okay. The one thing I'm going to say is you are going to be tempted in this bottom to go into you because you're talking about the real world. So sometimes you get into yous. You may not ever use the word you in formal writing. No, 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 no. So how are you going to write an essay? You are going to start with your body paragraph. You are going to raid your classmates to find a body paragraph that you think pairs nicely with it. You are going to, this time and this time only, because normally you don't have permission to copy and paste, but this time you're going to copy and paste that borrowed paragraph into your document. Then you are going to add an introduction. Either use a background introduction or go and find yourself a good quote. Then you're going to add a conclusion. And my guess is you're probably going to need a transition on the second body paragraph. So that should get you to a complete essay. And that was going to be the lecture in class, but that's okay. Sometimes you just got to monitor and adjust, so we're working with what we got. So go, write yourself a beautiful essay. I will see you back in class.